What day is it? Wednesday? Days of the week are hard this time of year. Here we are, Wednesday, December the 6th, coming off an orange win over Cornell last night. Don't forget the SRC Orange out tonight at Destiny USA. Red and a bunch of the guys will be out there, 6:30. It's free. Head on out, take a peek, watch it here on QSportsTalk.com as well. We'll get into the football and the recruiting and the portal and all that stuff coming up later on in the show, likely next hour. But want to get more into the basketball game last night. With that, we bring on our friend Debbie Antonelli, who you would have seen on ACC Network last night with our guy Jay Alter. Welcome in, Debbie. Thanks for hopping on for a few.
What's up, Brian? Thanks for having me on.
Well, always good to chat, Debbie, and we'll get into the game, but you shared a broadcast last night in some ways with Jim Boeheim. That had to be a different way of doing things last night, huh?
That's the most I've ever talked to Coach Boeheim ever, was in that interview. A short time we had with him. No, I'm just kidding. What a great opportunity for us to have him as a teammate on our air, and we're excited about it.
Yeah, I'd say, I'm sitting there watching the game last night when Cornell had that 11-1 run going into halftime. It's like, oh, boy, Jim's in the deep end of the pool now. This has got to be interesting. But, all told, I thought he did a pretty solid job last night.
I didn't get to see all of his work in the studio, but I know when he was with us, he was awesome, and it's great to have him. I mean, what great credibility, and it's interesting. He's got a wonderful sense of humor. If you listen and pay attention, it's a little dry, but it's good, and it'll be great for on air.
Yeah, and he was giving our guy Luke crap, too, which is it's always fun to bust on Luke a little bit. All right, Debbie, let's get into the game. And, as big picture as we can get here, the Game 9, Red Autry era, what are you making now here? 9 games into Red being in charge, and how much can you, read into whatever you're seeing of, just 9 games into a guy's head coaching career?
Well, it's certainly a small sample, but I like what I see. I think things are trending in the right direction. First of all, they're so athletic and long. I love that he's mixed in a little bit of zone, but primarily playing man-to-man. I think that's a tempo changer for them and for Syracuse. This is a bunch of guys that likes to run. I'm not saying they didn't run before, but I feel like the whole energy and the whole attitude is just let's get downhill as much as we can and let's play up tempo. And you can change the rhythm of the game in a lot of different ways. You can run faster, you can cut harder, but you also can change it with multiple defenses, and I think that's what he's doing.
Yeah, and obviously he promised from the get-go there'd be more man. Jim Boeheim, has said after the fact they, you kind of have to do it now. Is that how you view it, Debbie? Obviously the zone can still be sprinkled, but based on how good shooters are these days, do you almost have to be a man team as your primary defense at this point?
I think the zone was so unique, especially in that environment where you knew you were coming into the dome and you're going to have to face it. And as much as it looks like it's wide open, it's not, because Coach Boeheim always had rim protection. He had length on the wings. And, Joe Girard last year was smaller on the top of the floor, but he had so much length around him. There is situational zone for them. I mean, Coach Autry did play zone on baseline out-of-bounds plays, so he did sprinkle a little bit in. But I think, you got to do what's best with your personnel. And I think if Coach Boeheim recruited players that were long and athletic, I think Coach Autry is going to do the same thing. And I just think they're going to put him in a man-to-man defense a little bit more, and I think it's going to be fun for the fans.
Yeah, and it's certainly been, we've spent so long watching the other way. You got to retrain your brain of what you're looking at when you're watching Syracuse basketball these days. As Debbie Antonelli is our guest. Obviously, Debbie, Judah's the best guy in the team. I'd say that goes kind of without saying. But, now that you watch him in a game like that, what do you make of Judah and what he can be this year?
I definitely think he's improved. He's playing the game more under control. He definitely manages, and he understands what I like to say, the 3 W's, who to get the ball to, when, and where. He has a responsibility a little bit more than in the past. Joe Girard's not there alongside him last year. He could take on some of that responsibility, but it's definitely a different team when he's not on the floor. His range has gotten better, and I think he's equipped to take this team for a long ways, and it's tough to guard a guy. Reese Beekman did some things to him that bothered him in the game before when he only scored 5 points against Virginia, and that's a good early lesson for him. I think he is going to have to learn how to lean on his teammates a little bit more, but in the open floor, one-on-one, he doesn't need a screen.
He absolutely does not. No, he's getting past you, or I guess in his way, he's going right through you because he wants to end up at the free throw line as well. You also got to see Debbie last night. I mean, that's the best shooting game, outside shooting game of his career, going 5 of 7 from 3. Not that he's going to go 5 of 7 every game, but if he can just hit a couple, Debbie, how much does that just change the equation for what he can be going forward?
Oh, it changes everything because now it changes the manner in which you guard him. I mean, you're already trying to give him a cushion because he can blow by you. But now you got to come out with a little bit longer closeout, and that gives him a little bit more opportunity to get in the gap. But it also helps set up some other players too. So there's only good by him learning and working to get better on his range. And you can tell his off-season development. Whatever they told him at the NBA Combine when he came back, it must have been you got to be a better shooter, and he's done that. Yeah, and
last night it looked good. They went in. It's without question the best shooting performance from the outside he's had in a Syracuse uniform. And Debbie, you said it. Sometimes though, right? Judah's got to remember the other guys on the court. I think what we've seen so far this season, and I've talked about this a lot, is that Judah's great. When Judah is going, the other guys play off him very well, but that we haven't really necessarily seen a plan B if the Judah stuff isn't working. Where do you see Syracuse going? Like, if Judah doesn't have it, like what can they do to ignite the offense at this point?
Well, first, let me say this. I mean, Naheem McLeod played situationally, right? He starts the game, and then he comes in at the second half, and then we don't see him anymore. So I think that's a sign right there that McLeod is at 7'4". You can put him in places on the floor and at times in the game where he can absolutely change everything that you're doing. So he's a very good situational player for them. I think Quadir and Malik are going to have another level. I don't think we've seen it yet. I definitely think they can do more, and I also think Chris Bell can do a little bit more. I think those guys are going to figure it out because they're going to be able to play at such a fast pace. They're going to have to learn when to play fast and when to not be in a hurry. And there's a big difference. I thought there were a couple of quick shots last night. You can get away with it with Cornell because they shot the ball so poorly. But otherwise, I mean, overall, this is a pretty good performance by Syracuse. And Cornell's a good team. This is not a cupcake coming in here. And I know it looks like they haven't won in 42 years, but these guys had experience. They had been in there before. They didn't shoot it well. It's probably one of the worst shooting nights they've probably ever had, honestly. And you got to give Syracuse some credit for that.
Yeah, I'd say only 9 threes for Cornell last night. For them, it was a terrible shooting day based on their standards so far this season. As Debbie Antonelli is with us, and Cornell's a good team. They're picked top 3 in the Ivy League this year. We're still early here, Debbie. Where do you think Syracuse, based on what you saw last night, what you've seen from other teams, where right now do you think Syracuse slots in the ACC as we look forward?
Well, here's what I would say. I mean, I look at a checklist of things that I think you absolutely have to win and to advance and keep winning. And one is you have to have multiple ways to play defense because you can change the rhythm of the game. You got to know when you need to do that. And I think they're figuring that out. The other thing is, you have to have multiple scorers on the floor. I think Syracuse has that. They certainly haven't peaked. They've got other guys that can do more. You've got great rim protection, so you have 3-level defense. Ball pressure, rotation, and rim protection. So you got that going for you. And I think your depth has got to get a little bit better, and I think that will happen when Malik and Quadir become bigger factors. And then you got a go-to player in Mintz. So, I was really impressed with Syracuse last night. They were I thought they played really well at times. And I think that, closing out the end of the first half, they have to do better there. And they got to play better when Mintz is not on the floor. He got in foul trouble with 12 minutes left to play. That's tough when you get 4 fouls and you got to sit.
He also got in foul trouble after the weirdest possession I've ever seen. I don't know if I've ever seen 5 fouls on one defensive possession. Had you ever seen anything like that in your life before, Debbie?
No, and I will tell you, Jay Alter and I calling the game from, the at-home kits. We struggled a little bit with our seeing what was happening just because of our feed. We had a couple of technical things, and so during that whole stretch, I've not seen anything like that, and I think I saw it.
I'd say whether you saw it or not, just the amount of whistles that were happening there, it's like, wait a minute, this has been like, a kind of let it go kind of game, and then all of a sudden, like half of Syracuse got in foul trouble in one possession. I don't know what just happened there. It was a weird thing.
Especially especially, Brian, since we didn't have a lot of whistles in the first half.
Yeah.
It seemed like they went up and down so much without a whistle because, just the way the game was going. It was going pretty fast. It was very fast.
Yeah, it was one where, foul trouble hadn't crossed my brain watching the game. Then all of a sudden, Judah and Quadir are both on the bench with the four. It's like, wait, what just happened here? But we started by talking about Red a little bit. And I wonder where you think, Debbie, we talk about room and improvement for a team going throughout the year. You usually think of players. Like, this is Red's first time through it. We're so used to, literally my whole lifetime of Jim Boeheim being the head coach. Where do you think Red's room is to grow as a head coach? Because I'd imagine it can be dramatic, right, during your first season on the job.
Yeah. Well, first of all, replacing a legend for anyone is not easy. And even if you sat there, that 18 inches that you move over to the big chair is much different. When we were talking to him before the game, we asked him about that. And he said he's learning to delegate more. Instead of watching a team five films on a game, he might watch two because he's got other responsibilities and he relies on his staff for scouting instead of him doing it all himself. So I think that's a big deal right there. Mm-hmm. And then all the other responsibilities that come with being a head coach in today's climate. You can't wait to get to practice with some of the things you got to deal with because that practice can be your sanctity where you can really teach the game and spend time with your guys because that's what you want to do and that's why you're doing it. I think he's going to be great. I think he's a likable guy. He's got infectious attitude and energy, and I think the guys are going to play like that, and they're going to feed off it. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, we'll hear, as we do every Thursday, Red will be on Orange Nation tomorrow at 12:15. So catch him every Thursday on this station throughout the season. It's stuff like that, right? He's got his weekly radio show tomorrow night. You got to deal with, donors and administration and NIL and the transfer portal. Like, it's shocking how much stuff a head coach has to deal with besides basketball these days.
It is. It's true. You just want to get in the film room with your guys or get in practice and break it down, and that's what your favorite part is. That's what you signed up for. But all those other responsibilities come with it, and he's learning to navigate all of that.
Yeah, it's funny. You get the job because of basketball, and it's like, oh, yes, here's all of this other stuff you have to do. All right, Debbie, before I let you go, obviously you cover women's hoops as well. Have you gotten a chance to watch the Syracuse women this year? T.H. Affair and the crew off to a hot start. Have you, any thoughts on the ladies at this point?
Well, I knew that Coach Leggett would get after it, and I'm not surprised. I'm so glad Deasia Fair came back because she's a bucket, and all the pieces that she's put around her just make it more exciting. It's going to be exciting ACC season on the women's side too, Brian. It is wide open. I don't know who really is the top team right now in the league. NC State's way ahead of schedule, ranked number 3 in the country. I mean, that's shocking to go from unranked to number 3. That's never happened before, ever in the history of the game. Mm-hmm. North Carolina's a little behind schedule. Notre Dame's had some injuries. I think Louisville is going to be really good. I mean, they're always going to play great D, and he's got enough offense to be a problem. I think Miami's the secret. Duke plays good defense. They're young. Their freshmen are good. I mean, you can just go right on down the list. The Syracuse is right in there. I mean, it is going to be really fun to watch. It's wide open.
Yeah, they got a really nice win against Alabama last week in the ACC SEC deal. Yeah, you're right. NC State out of the blue. Didn't see that coming. And Notre Dame, if healthy, I presume, would be the best team. But they've not been healthy yet, so we'll see where it goes. All right, Debbie, always great to chat. I'm sure we'll catch up again as the season goes along. But thanks for hopping on as always.
Hey, appreciate you, Brian. Thanks for all you do, and thanks for having me on.
All right, always great to chat with Debbie Antonelli. Catch your work all season long, ACC Network and elsewhere on the ESPN family of networks, both men's and women's college basketball. Always great to chat with Debbie. You can catch her doing the tournament as well down the line with CBS. So with that, we will take a break. Phone lines open when we come back. 315-437-7644. You know the number. It is 4 ESPN 44 on this hour, brought to you by William Attar. Hurt in a car? Call William Attar. We're back after this. It's QSportsTalk.com. It is ESPN Radio.